Hey, it's Marley. Time to start a new 24-hour reading vlog. It is kind of a tradition on my channel to at least do one 24-hour reading vlog every year. Normally ends up being in the summer. Basically, for a 24-hour readathon or reading vlog, you just try to read as much as possible in the 24-hour time period. So I obviously end up always doing this on a weekend where I have a bunch of free time. It is currently a Saturday and it's almost 8 p.m. So the 24 hours is going to be 8 p.m. today until 8 p.m. tomorrow. And I'm going to do my best to read as much as possible. In the past, I have read between 1 to 3 books when I've done this, so I think my goal this time is going to be to read maybe at least 2 books. What's on the TBR is mainly I want to focus on my book club book for the month with my friends, and that's Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera or something is the author. This is a thriller book, so I think it will be good to get through a thriller book in 24 hours. Those are the quickest and easiest for me to get through. This one sounds pretty interesting as we have a main character who lost her best friend when she was young. Her best friend was murdered. I don't think the case was ever really solved, but she was a suspect for it. And now it's years later and this podcast is covering the murder, and so she's getting kind of wrapped up in this mystery again where she is a potential suspect, and she I think has some memory issues, so she doesn't actually remember herself what happened to her friend, so she very well could have been the killer. So that's what we're trying to unravel in this book. I actually got my hands on the audiobook. I don't have Audible myself, but just found out my boyfriend has it and he had a credit that he's letting me use, so that's perfect because I was not able to get it from the library because there's so many holds on it. So I have the audiobook for that. I don't listen to audiobooks very often, but I thought it would be a good idea to have one going for this 24-hour reading vlog. So that's going to be my main focus, and that'll probably take all of my attention tonight. Tomorrow we'll see if there's any other book that I want to get into. I don't exactly have it planned out, but yeah, I just wanted to start this vlog, tell you what I intend to read first. And yeah, let's see how many books we can read in the next 24 hours. All right, hello. We are about 2 hours into this readathon, and I would say I'm about a third of the way through Listen for the Lie. I've been listening while I've been coloring, but now it is also time for me to change my insulin pump, the pod for my insulin pump, so we're gonna do that while I kind of update you. So as I said, we're following our main girl, Lucy, and basically, she is living in California at the beginning of the book, but she ends up getting fired from her job and like broken up with by her boyfriend when this podcast comes out that is about something regarding her past, which is when she was in her early 20s, living in her hometown, her best friend was murdered and she was found walking covered in blood. And so she was always the main suspect in her best friend's murder case, but there was never enough evidence to convict her. So she's just kind of moved away from the town and tried to separate herself because everyone there just thinks that she's guilty and like hates her. And now with this podcast, everything's just getting brought up again. And she ends up going back home to her hometown because it's her grandma's birthday. Her grandma kind of lures her back, but in reality, we find out that the podcaster guy is actually in town still. So anyways, basically, she is going to start working with him to figure out who really killed her friend, which potentially is still Lucy because she has amnesia from the whole situation. She does not remember the whole night that her best friend died. So we have that unreliable narrator thing. It's obviously very convenient. I assume she's going to magically remember at some point in the book. I feel like it's not going to be her, but obviously it still could be. There are a lot of different suspects, a lot of different players we are getting introduced to, and in between Lucy's chapters we are getting actual clips of the podcast, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to listen to this one as an audiobook, because I heard it was done well, and it is. Whenever it's the podcast clips, it sounds really real, like a real podcast, and it's done very well. So that part is pretty enjoyable. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like obsessed with it. It's kind of just reading like a typical thriller, typical podcast thriller. We're getting all the suspects and I'm kind of making theories. I don't overly have a huge amount of suspects that I'm feeling really passionate about. I do think Lucy's parents are probably the most suspicious people to me right now, and I won't get into why or anything. Sorry, you can't really see, but I'm putting on the new god. Yeah, I just think her parents are probably the most suspicious for me, but there's a bunch of other suspects it could be as well. I'm considering taking a break from reading. I know I shouldn't break during a 24-hour reading vlog. Ouch. But I kind of want to take a break, and it would be nice if I could have a snack, but my blood sugars are like super high, which is really annoying. They're like not coming down for some reason. Earlier, I actually had a really intense low blood sugar where I felt really bad, and I ended up, I think, overeating because of that. So now they just won't come down, which is like really annoying. So maybe I'll try to like walk while I read or something to be a little bit more active. But yeah, I think there is potential for me to finish the book tonight, or at least get close to finishing. I'm having ice cream even though I shouldn't. Alrighty, it is 1:30 a.m. so I'm finally gonna go to bed now. This is a bit later than I normally stay up, but I wanted to finish that coloring thing that I was working on, which I showed you, and I am getting close to the end of the book. I have about 2 hours left, so a little bit more than 2 hours left of the audiobook. Still having a good time overall. I do feel like the pacing is losing me a little bit though at this point. I don't think this is like gonna be a favorite thriller by any means. I'm not totally like super invested. Well, I'm invested, but I don't know, it's losing me a little bit at this point. It's a very like horny book. Like there's a lot of kind of love interest for the main character kind of thing, and taking some different turns like that. Our main character is a very fun character to follow. She's very funny, and I guess like the author is quite funny, so I would be interested in reading more from this author. I don't know if she has more books. I feel like maybe this is her first one. But yeah, the main character is funny. She is definitely suspicious to me. I think it would be kind of lame if it ends up just being that she's the killer after all. I don't think it's gonna be that, but she is kind of on my list because she is a little bit suspicious. I feel like there's gonna be multiple people involved potentially in this cover-up. Yeah, I am looking forward to seeing what the final reveals are going to be, but I think it's gonna be like a 3.5 star rating if I had to guess right now, but I will finish it tomorrow. Morning. It is Sunday at 10:30. We're gonna continue this readathon. I have been listening to a little bit more of the book while I just kind of went through my phone, went through social media. I am gonna have my coffee now. I have, I think, less than 2 hours left of the book now, so I'll probably just keep reading until lunchtime, have lunch, and then continue with a different book for the rest of the day. In terms of what other books I'm gonna read, I am considering maybe some shorter options so I know I can finish something else, like potentially a novella, or have a couple manga volumes from a couple series I'm working on. So we'll see what the day brings. All right, I just finished listening for the lie. I didn't guess who kind of the killer was. I think it's possible that you could have though. I think that it could have been twistier though. I kind of wish there was more of like a last minute twist at the end. I feel like that could have really enhanced this book if it had that. I feel like it was focused on quite like heavy topics. It deals a lot with kind of like domestic abuse and abuse against women, which obviously is very important, and I appreciate that it's shedding light on that, but at the same time, and like on misogyny and stuff like that, at the same time, that those kind of topics are just kind of bring me down as well. Like it wasn't really as fun as it could have been. So I don't know, I feel like I would rate it a 3-star or a 3.5 star rating. I think I'm getting better at being a little bit more harsher with my ratings, or like not just automatically giving everything a 4. I feel like I'm getting better at giving 3s out, and I feel like this potentially is more of like a 3-star, 3.5-star thriller. I do think the audiobook was good and had a good production, which if you're gonna pick this book up, I would recommend doing that as well. But yeah, I just kind of feel like this is a average thriller, run-of-the-mill thriller. It didn't really do anything too exceptional, unless you do want to kind of read about those topics that I mentioned. So yeah, at least I finished that though, and I will, I guess, discuss that with my book club in our next meeting. For the rest of the day, so it is almost 12, so maybe I'll work on lunch and then eating, and probably watch an episode of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. If you don't know, that's like one of my favorite books, and I've been slowly making my way through the show. I think I've only watched 2 episodes so far, and I'm liking it. I've heard some negative things about the show, so I'm kind of like interested to see how the rest of the show goes. There's only 6 episodes, so maybe I'll watch episode 3 and I can let you guys know what I think about that, and I will pick up my next book. Do you think this is too many peaches? Alright, well that was quick. I literally just read this super quickly. It's only 100 pages, so, and the font is like huge in these novellas. Yeah, I mean, now I've officially read all of Alice Oseman's books. I definitely think the novellas are the weakest. The Nick and Charlie one, I rated 4 stars technically, but it probably was only 3. And I think I might give 3 stars to this one as well. It's always hard to rate like a really short book very highly, and also this one is very focused on basically this one Christmas at the Spring family. So we have the points of view of Tori, Charlie, and Oliver actually at the end. It's very focused on the angst kind of surrounding Charlie's eating disorder. I thought that this was the like latest book in the series, but I think it actually took place before the other Nick and Charlie novella, so I think I totally did not read these books in the proper order, but at least now I am done, so it's good to just kind of have gotten this out of the way. Now I think I'm going to go back to reading a full-length book. Let me grab it. Attached at the Hip by Riccio. I have not been hearing the best things about this one, but I do want to read it because I have been following Christine on social media, starting with YouTube and now just across all platforms since I was young. So I do want to give her newest book a chance, even though her previous 2 books have not been, you know, the best. So yeah, maybe we can get into this one next. Alright, it has been a minute since I last updated. It is now 4:30 in the afternoon, and I'm 100 pages into Attached at the Hip. It started out a little bit rough, but I'm actually not hating it. I feel like it's actually been very easy for me to fly through the first 100 pages, and I'm not mad to continue it. You know what I mean? That being said, it still has the kind of typical cringy writing that you can expect from Christine. No offense to her. She has a very kind of wild personality, and you can definitely see that in her books and in her main characters. So our main character is Ori. She's done university, so she is like probably in her early to mid 20s. Doesn't have a ton going on for her. She gets called out at the very beginning of the book by her sister. Her sister's kind of upset that she's not like living her own life. She can't make decisions for herself. She's very codependent. She's still living with their parents. She's been dating the same guy since she was 13, and she doesn't even love him. And she's just kind of going along with her sister's passion for yoga. Her and her sister have this like online following, doing yoga, like being influencers, and so she just kind of goes along with everything and doesn't really make any decisions for herself. So she decides to apply for Survivor, and she gets on the show, but then once she's on it, she finds out that it is actually a spin-off version of a like dating reality show version of Survivor, and so this is going to be her big moment to finally do something on her own and finally find a true love match that she actually likes. So Ori is quite kind of immature, and I know that's the point of her character, is that she needs to like grow up, but it is a little bit over the top where it does feel like she is really a teenager, and I find that kind of common with Christine's writing. I kind of feel like she should be writing YA characters rather than these adult characters. I think it would just kind of fit with her writing style more, but alas, she keeps writing characters in their 20s. But anyways, so that's a bit of a critique, you could say, and then there's just some lines that just don't work for me, and I can tell it's trying to come off as like humorous, but they just come off as like too cringy. One of the things that is weirding me out the most is that Ori, who already has like kind of a unique weird name, is trying to get people to call her Piccadilly. She wants this nickname of Piccadilly on the show, and I think it makes no sense. There's no like reason why she would want to be called that, and it's such a random thing to want to have as your nickname. So certain things like that are just kind of throwing me off, and I can tell from reviews that they throw some other people off as well. That being said, there's still moments in the book that work, and it's not like absolutely terrible by any means. I do just kind of wish certain things were a little bit better. But anyways, in this competition, you get attached at the hip, tied with rope with different people throughout the game. And so she starts out with being attached to, what is his name? Remy, who is a guy that she had a crush on in high school. And so it seems like a lot of these people on the show like have this kind of lost connection. So we're having a bit of like a second chance romance in a way, where she did always have a thing for him in high school, and now they're finally able to bond and connect. But throughout the game, they're going to get paired up with different matches. So I actually don't know if Remy is the end game, because they've kind of set up like another character as well and introduced another guy who I think could be a love interest. But I do feel like at first some of their dialogue was awkward, but now I actually felt like I really did understand the bond between her and Remy, and it actually was working more for me. So I think I was definitely noticing more of those cringy elements in the first 50 pages, and it hasn't been as bad in the second half. And we've also started to get more of the survivor elements, more of the competitions, and I think you can tell Christine is a really big fan of the show, because I feel like she's doing those aspects pretty well, like the reality TV stuff. Another thing is always the kind of pop culture references. She is known to include a lot of those. I do think she's still including a lot in here. It's not to the point of being unbearable, but sometimes I do think it is a bit much, but it's probably been worse in her other books. So yeah, I will keep reading this, keep updating you guys until we hit 8 p.m. Alright, I'm about 200 pages into the book, and we have 45 minutes left on the clock, so I'm making good progress here. But yeah, I'm actually enjoying this book still. I feel like I could see people DNFing after the first 50 pages, but I actually feel like if you push through, like the actual competition is pretty exciting actually, if you're a fan of reality TV shows such as Survivor. And actually they just had this kind of stressful voting situation, and it was kind of a reminder for me, because this summer I played in a backyard Survivor game that was very intense and very similar to the real game of Survivor, and it really like took me back to that time of playing, how like stressful it can be when you're trying to come up with who you're gonna vote and not knowing what other people are gonna do and stuff like that. So I'm actually having a fun time with it. I also read the part of her bonding with this other guy who's the other love interest that I mentioned, Osprey I think his name is. A lot of weird names, but yeah, they're actually quite cute. Like they had a good banter, kind of enemies to lovers moment, and so now there's a bit of like a love triangle situation, and it's pretty fun actually. Like I think this might be her best book. The pacing's not feeling off either, at least not yet. I know that was a big issue I had with her last book, that it just like kept going and kept like never ending. And so we'll have to see if it feels that way at the end. But yeah, it's actually not too bad right now, other than those few like kind of cringy things that come up. I realized I also didn't talk about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder when I watched episode 3 earlier. I am liking that show as well. I feel like I don't really remember all the exact details of the book because I read it so long ago. So that's always good. That's how I like to consume adaptations, is to have like some space between me and the source material. So I am liking it. I feel like what I do remember of the book is pretty accurate. I think with it being young adult content, there are moments where I can roll my eyes a little bit. I don't know if that's how it was in the book too, but just how like the convenience of some things that Pip figures out, or the way she gets people to tell her stuff, and it's just like as if she would figure this out instead of the cops, you know what I mean? But yeah, I really do like Pip and all of her friends, all the actors playing all of the characters. I really like Ravi and the guy playing him, and yeah, I think the show's good so far. I don't think I'm gonna watch any more episodes obviously for this vlog, but hopefully I can give you my overall thoughts on the show at some point on my channel. If you've watched the show though, let me know in the comments what you thought of it, and I'll check back in when I'm officially done with the readathon. Okay, I'm here to close out the vlog because it is officially 8 o'clock. So it's been 24 hours that I have been reading. I got to page 230 in Attached at the Hip. I'm still enjoying it. We had a bit of a twist to the love triangle, which was interesting. I did not expect that. Yeah, overall, I'm enjoying it. Just think some of the pop culture references are a bit much, but tune into my wrap up at the end of the month, I guess, to see what I end up rating this book. I think it's on track to being maybe even like a 4-star rating, honestly. We'll have to see. So I think it's a pretty successful reading vlog overall. I read a full thriller book, Listen for the Lie. I read a novella this winter, and I made pretty good progress in a whole other book. I have a little over 100 pages left, so I should be able to finish that relatively quickly. Maybe I could have finished it if I didn't take some breaks to watch TV shows, but what can you do? So thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely leave me a comment below on any of the things I've talked about in this vlog. Subscribe if you've not already, and follow me on my other social media platforms, which are always linked in the description. But I hope you guys are having a great week. I will see you next time. Bye.